Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've filmed. I feel like I say that every time I film a video actually. But it feels like it's been a while since I did a video. My last video was when I left my last job and started my new job, and I've been in my job for a month now. So that is actually quite a long time. As you can see, I'm not in my usual filming space. I do usually film in my bedroom. I just wanted to film in my lounge today just because my room's really messy. I just get to the point at the end of the week where I have to spend my Saturday morning like cleaning the flat, tidying, just because I work 9 till 6, but I leave the house at 8, I get home at 7, and when I get home in the week I literally come in, get changed or have a shower, I eat and I go to bed. So it's just a mess, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a Friday night and I can't be asked to tidy my room. So here we are in my lounge in my really Christmassy outfit, which I'm vibing with. So as you can see, I have my new glasses on, I have darker hair still. This hair clip is really pissing me off, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm probably gonna mess with my hair this entire video because it's not nice enough to have it down, and this doesn't work. I need someone to teach me how to use this because everyone looks so good in them, and my hair isn't that long. Like, it's past my nips, but it's not excessive. And I see all these girls wearing these clips and I'm like, oh yeah, insane. And one of the girls from work gave me her spare one and it just looks shit. I don't know if it's because the hair's so blunt at the end, but it just also, it's not like my hair is super clean, because it's not. So I don't know why it doesn't, I mean, I do have thick hair. It just doesn't stay. This will fall out in a minute, I guarantee it. But anyway, so my last video was about my job, and I didn't want to keep doing like YouTube videos about my job, but it's all that anyone wants to see really. So I am more interesting than just social media, but we move. You got to give the people what they want. I also keep seeing the ring light in my glasses and it's really getting on my nerves, so please ignore that. So I've had loads of messages asking when I was going to do this video. So if anyone hasn't read the title already, this is just all going to be about like a creative CV. So when I did my previous video on how to break the industry, I basically did everything about like how I got my job, like kind of just like my actual story and like a few tips for other people breaking the industry and stuff. So like when people message me all the time being like, hi, I saw your TikTok, or hi, like I know that you do this for a living, like I really love your job, like can you give me some advice? I literally just don't even like, I can't even reply to it because I'm not even being like, oh, I'm gonna get so many messages, but I genuinely do get so many people being like, how did you get your job? So having that video is a blessing because it just means I can be like, hi, I've got a YouTube video. Great promo for me, ups my views, ups my subscribers, but also like it genuinely would give you a better answer than me being like, oh, I did this and I did this, because obviously I've said it so many times that I'm not bored about talking about it, don't get me wrong, like obviously I love my job and I'm super grateful, but it does get tiring when it's a Friday night and I come home and I've got unread messages and it's just people asking how you got your job. I can just send them to my video, it's half an hour long and it helps. So I did say that I was going to do another video on a creative CV. So I kind of shot myself in the foot really. So this is why I'm doing a whole other video on how to make a creative CV, the do's and don'ts, especially the don'ts, because I feel like most creative people know what they're doing. Most creative people have the initiative and have the ideas to do a creative CV. It's more of the what not to do rather than the what to do. So that's what this is going to be about. But also I did ask people what they wanted to know. So obviously there's certain questions are particular to certain people. So let's start with the Q&A, just because I feel like that's what people have actually asked. So we know that this is what people actually want to know. So I'm just going to throw myself in with all of these juicy cues. Oh my god, there's actually quite a lot. This ring light is doing my head in. You can just see in a reflection of everything. But as you can see, there's quite a lot. And no, I haven't asked them myself. Oh, thanks for that, Millie. The first question is, go suck a dick. I would if I could, bitch, but we're in tier 3. The first question I've got at the top of the list, I'm just going to work my way down, is what website or app do you use to create your CV? So obviously this will differ from person to person, depending on your skill set, depending on what computer you have, depending on budget as well, because I use Photoshop, but it is expensive. So I actually used my best friend's Photoshop when applying for jobs. So let's take my current job out of the equation because this is my second job. When I was applying for my first job at In The Style, I used my best friend's Photoshop. So I learned how to use Photoshop in sixth form college, and obviously had like rough skills, then obviously went to university, learned how to use Photoshop properly. And then when I graduated in the July, was waitressing July, August, September, October, November, and then came around to Christmas and all the staff were leaving and they basically told me I had to work like every single day over Christmas, and I was like, not gonna happen. So I handed my notice in, knowing full well I was going to have no job and no money, because I've always waitressed. I've waitressed since I was like 15, 16 and never had a Christmas not working. So I definitely wanted to just quit, have a Christmas with my family. It was my first Christmas with my nephew as well, so that was really important to me. So I quit waitressing and didn't have a job, and obviously didn't have any plans for what I was doing. So I couldn't afford to have Photoshop on my own laptop because it's like £30 a month, I think. And when you're obviously not earning anything, obviously I wasn't paying rent, I was living with my parents, but when you're not earning anything, £30 a month is a lot of money. So luckily my best friend had Photoshop on her laptop, so she literally just said like, take my laptop home and make whatever you want with it. So I personally use Photoshop, but I know that there are other platforms that you can use that are free or similar. Just don't use Paint, pure and simple. I know that no one would use Paint, but don't use Paint, but also don't use Microsoft Word. When you've got people making these huge 5, 6, 7 page portfolios or CVs or whatever you want to call them, when they're so creative, and then you could have the most amazing experience, and obviously you probably would get an interview, but if you've got the creativity there, then use it. So obviously having a black and white CV is fine, and then doing like a portfolio on the side so it's a bit more professional and then creative, that's fine. I feel like creative CVs are just not even surprising anymore, they're like expected. So when you're not really using these platforms like Photoshop, it's just a bit like anticlimax when you apply for stuff. My answer to the question obviously is I use Photoshop. I've learned how to use it since I was 16, 17 and use it most days now. Someone has asked what skills do I need for my job? So this isn't like CV based, but skill set, Photoshop. Stuff like InDesign and Premiere Pro and iMovie, like that helps with like editing for social videos and stuff, but it's not key. Splice is a great app that I use in-house at work for editing videos. So like you don't have to have the full skill set. Obviously I edit videos with YouTube, so I know how to use Premiere Pro, but having skills like Adobe software is really helpful. But also just like skills in general, like copywriting. Copywriting is a really underrated skill, and I feel like in social as well, when you're writing captions for posts, and like you have to have a right tone of voice. I would say those are like the necessary skills that you need. My next question was, how did you apply for the InStyle job? That's in my last video, so you can head to my channel to watch that now. I didn't apply for a job, I literally just sent them a CV. I think they were hiring for an exec at the time, but I wasn't exec material, which I am now. Not that I'm like material, I've obviously just got enough skills now. But yeah, I didn't apply for a job, but that's in my other video. So the next question I have is, did you manage to get any work experience prior to your first job, and how important is it? So I did have prior work experience. Again, this is in my last video. I worked at Capital FM. I was really lucky I had someone that knew someone. It's always about connections in this sort of industry anyway. But I had someone that knew someone, and they got me in touch, and I ended up doing some work experience at Capital. So yeah, I did have relevant work experience because I did reporting there, and then I did social media. I was their social editor, I think, while at Fusion Festival. So I was doing all the social media for Capital FM Liverpool. So yeah, I did have relevant experience before I applied for my first job. I wouldn't say it's necessary, but it definitely helps. I think that because I didn't do a fashion marketing job, I did journalism. It wasn't direct. So even though I had similar skills necessary for the role, I didn't have a direct like experience. A lot of fashion marketing courses, you do a year in industry, so you would do a year at my company and then go do your third year, and then they'd offer you a job. So it obviously I was up against other people, but yeah, my personal experience definitely helped getting my job. I wouldn't say it's like super important, because obviously if you've got a relevant degree and it's an open like graduate level job, you'll probably get an interview if you do quite a bold CV, because you'll stand out. But obviously having a lot of experience would definitely stand out from the crowd. So someone said how to make it different to everybody else's. So don't follow a template, don't follow other people's examples. So I know that there's people in this industry that have done CV videos before. So I know that Sissy, who works at PLT, has done another video like this where she's kind of talked through her CV and stuff. So I feel like if you've watched that and you're watching this, and like, or you're watching anyone else's video where they're like creative CV, blah, 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 do not copy it. Because if you, for example, applied for a job at my job using a very similar template to what I did, I'm going to be the one that's looking at it. So you're not going to be creative if you're using someone else's creativity. So do not copy other people would be my top tip for that. You need to be yourself. So make it different to everyone else. Don't use a template. Don't use anything online that's like a creative CV guide, because that's just going to look like what everyone's doing. So maybe just like look at like people's inspiration, but maybe take parts from it and then like think about how you can make it your own. Like someone might look at mine and be like, oh, I don't like that, but I do like that, and then do that, but then do something else. So just make sure that you are being yourself and not copying other people, because I feel like you will end up not getting caught, but it's just one of those things where if you applied to a job with a creative CV that's not yours, and then you get the job and then you're not as good as your CV is, people are just going to realise that it wasn't you that did it. So someone's asked me how was my CV perceived. They loved it, and congrats on the new job. Thanks, Han. Absolutely loving it. My CV, my initial creative CV was perceived really well. So I literally sent my first creative CV to everyone. I sent it to Miss Pap, Missy Empire, Misguided, Boohoo, PLT, Nasty Gal. I saw it first, In the Style. So yeah, I literally sent it to everyone. And I actually got 3 responses. So I sent it to all of those. And within sending them, I had an interview at In the Style, I had an interview at PLT, and I got offered an interview at Boohoo. So I had my first interview at In the Style, it went really well, and then they offered me the job. And then I had an interview at PLT of the following week. And when I got to PLT, they were amazing and I really, really loved it. But they literally told me when I was in the interview that they'd hired someone as a social assistant that week prior. So they were like, can't offer you an assistant job in social, but would you do graphics? And I was just like, look, it's an amazing job and an amazing company, but I really want to be doing social. And when you've already been offered a social job, it would be stupid for me to have taken that, because I don't want to do graphics forever. So I am in hindsight glad that I did take the In the Style job. And then 3 or 4 weeks into starting it In the Style, I had a phone call and an email from Boohoo. I remember my phone ringing at In the Style, and obviously I wouldn't take personal calls. And I remember like putting the number into Google to see who it was, and it was like Boohoo PLC, and I was like, oh my god, close. And yeah, I never went, but I wish I had, to be honest. Not because I didn't like want to be at In the Style at that time, but just because I wish that I had gone just to see what they had said. Like, I feel like taking an interview is always a good idea, whether you're settled on something or not. So I kind of wish I'd gone, but obviously I was literally been in my new job for 4 weeks and it was my first job. So who knows where I would have been if I'd taken it. Like, at the time, In Style didn't have anyone else on their social team, so I was doing everything. So I was getting a lot of experience. Whereas I felt like if I went to Boohoo, I would be making tea and doing like, not that there's anything wrong with like an actual assistant job, but I was just given a lot more responsibility In the Style, and at the time it just seemed wise to just stay there. It was kind of hard actually, when I'd already got a job, to then make another creative CV that wasn't as in your face. So for me, I feel like I needed to do something super, super in your face and super bold, because I didn't have that much experience. Whereas when I was applying for jobs with my new job, I wasn't putting in, not the creativity, but the thing that stood out in my CV now is 2 years experience in the business. It's not, I can use Photoshop. So my CV now is completely different. I will do, obviously, like around the time when we go through to relevant questions, I will do like a pop-up of my CV from when I applied to like In Style and stuff. And then I will show you like the CV that I did to get my job at I Saw It First. But they are completely different. First one was a portfolio. It was 4 pages long. It was bright pink. And yeah, it was just completely different, and it was obviously having to be eye-catching because I didn't have loads of experience, whereas my CV that I applied for at I Saw It First was black because it was on brand, it was black and gold, and it was literally 1 page and just had like my experience from In the Style on it, and that was about it really. But it had like a QR code on it, which I think is like quite quirky, which had a link to all of my interviews that I've done, and just like, I just think it's quite a good idea to have something that's a bit quirky. But yeah, it's 1 page compared to 4, and it's obviously the focus is what I do for a job, not what I could be doing. So it completely varies. So this is a really, really, really good question. It's not really CV based, but it says, do you think that your own personal social media feed needs to be good to get into the industry? I don't think that's true, but it obviously helps. So when I was applying for jobs, I obviously had like 12,000 followers at the time, so having that was a real benefit. But also now I work in the business, if anyone's like, I've got 12,000 followers, I could run an account with 2 million easily, I'd be like, slag, because it is not the same. But having a good personal social just shows your interest in it, I guess. Shows your interest, shows that you can be creative. Like, it's a good way for you to get experience without having experience. So I definitely would recommend it, but it's not crucial. Like, if someone sent an amazing CV and then I went on their Instagram and they had 3 posts, I'm not going to be like, oh, get rid. Oh my God, look at my nail varnish. Yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, gasp, she's going to be awful for the job. So that's not really, it's like, it helps, but it's not necessary. Okay, so the next one says, how did you find people's office addresses to send your CV to? Google, honey. Like, without being sarcastic, Google gives the answer to everything. So when I was doing my original creative CV, I sneakily went onto LinkedIn and would put in like head of marketing or marketing in the style, and then found a relevant member of staff. So I found Grace, who was my old manager, and I found Adam as well, who was the CEO, and I basically just sent it to them. So I obviously knew what they were called and what their job was. And if I couldn't find the relevant person, I would put like, for the attention of FOA, and then put head of marketing, because then obviously when it gets to the office, they'll be like, head of marketing, it's Bob. Take it to Bob. So obviously I found the person on LinkedIn and then printed all the CVs out, and then on the handwritten thing I would put like, for the attention of, and then either their name or their position, and then I would just Google Pretty Little Thing headquarters and it would come up with the address. Or usually if it doesn't come up with the address, it would come up with the warehouse, which is where I think I went wrong with misguided. But yeah, so usually you can find the address dead easily. Google it. Like, that is literally pure and simple. Google it. But I would recommend never, ever, 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 ever send it to someone's house or personal address. Like, for whatever reason, like if you knew where I lived and you sent me a CV, I would lose my shit. So whatever you do, never send it to someone's personal address. And also, you've got to bear in mind at the moment, if you're watching this and you're thinking that you want to be doing what I'm doing and want to be applying for jobs and creating CVs and stuff, I probably wouldn't recommend printing off CVs at the moment and posting them, because most jobs are working from home. So you could post a CV and it won't get opened for 4 or 5 months. So definitely try and find them on LinkedIn, message them on LinkedIn, or find an email for them and contact them that way instead. So someone said, how can I stand out or impress when I don't have any experience? It's hard because, like you said, you kind of need the experience to prove that you've got the interest or the creativity. But I just think if you don't have loads of experience, you just need to make it stand out as much as possible. Like, whether it's with your CV or whether it's with what you're doing. So like, I saw some of the internships that Boohoo offer, and I've seen people literally applying with like cake, or like applying with like balloons, and you pop it and it's got their CV in it. Like, you've just got to think of new ways to get attention, like ways that haven't been done before. Don't copy other people, but definitely take inspo from what people are doing. Like, I think someone made a chessboard as well, and like each piece had like their experience on it or whatever, or their interests. So I think definitely when you apply for jobs, just definitely try and stand out from the crowd. But I think when you don't have experience, then don't admit that you don't have the experience. Make as much out of what you have as you can. So for me, working at Capital was great, but also like I had my own personal Instagram. I ran the Instagram for my cheerleading team. So like, you need to have little things that are relevant, because if you've got those little things, then it builds up and it builds up. And also, when you don't have loads of experience, say where you could or would work. Like, so like when I applied for all these jobs, I wanted to be in social more than anything. But I was like, I could work in graphics, I could work in social, I could work in outreach, I could work in marketing, I could work in copywriting, I could work in this, I can work in this, I can work in this. Because when you're just trying to get your foot in the door, it doesn't matter where you are. Like, I could have got a job in the customer service team and then shown them all the social skills that I had, and then got a job in social when it became available. So you just need to make it clear that you could be in multiple places, and it doesn't matter what, because you've got such a good skill set. Is there a minimum page requirement? See, I would always say keep your CV to 1 page. I know that sounds weird because I did a 4-page one, but my 4-page one was bright pink and covered in crap. So it's completely different when it's covered with text. I feel like you need to keep the text to a minimum, because I feel like when I see a CV with loads of text, I feel like they're compensating for the lack of skill set or their lack of experience. So don't think that having a 2-page CV with a huge paragraph of what you did on your 1-week work experience is going to make you look good, because to me it doesn't. I would rather someone said Glamour magazine work experience November 2019, and then that was it, rather than being like, I did 1 week's work experience at Glamour magazine. During my time there, I did this, and this. Because if you've got good experience like that, I will ask you about it in your interview. You don't need to put it into a paragraph on your CV, because if you see it on the CV, you know it's going to be good, you know it's going to be important. You don't need to tell every little detail about it on your CV. So for me, a one-page CV is always best, but like I said, I feel like if you do want to be creative and you want to do more than one page, that's fine, but don't make it text-based. It has to be visual, otherwise it's just not going to make people want to read it. Someone said, do you feel like your industry is very competitive? Ridiculously so. I'm really lucky to have the job that I have. I'm really lucky to be in the industry that I'm in with little fashion experience. The only fashion experience I have is from my first job, and it's like, how do you get the experience without the experience? And it's so true. I am really, really lucky, but yeah, it's ridiculously competitive. We had a vacancy on our social team, and within 5 minutes of posting it on LinkedIn, I think myself and my manager had about 50 people send CVs to us, and then we had a following 50 like the next day. Like, it was ridiculous, and I'm still getting people messaging me now about it, and it's like the position's been filled. Like, we got people in and had interviews, and then it's just like these things go so quickly. So yeah, you've got to just be on it all the time. So someone put, mine looks so boring, I'll graduate in fashion marketing this August, please help me. I just think if you've got a relevant degree and you've got the skills, like, you just need to have like a day where you like slap yourself around the face and you're like, right, we're gonna do this today. Even if you do loads that day and then you're like, oh my god, I'm knackered, my eyes are square, like, you need to leave it and then go back to it, because it will literally do you so much good to actually see what it looks like when you've got a pair of fresh eyes. But I would just definitely recommend just looking at some inspo, looking what other people have done, like myself, and then just making your own version of it, and then you can literally just ship it out to whoever, whenever. People are usually hiring quite a lot, so even if you send out a really good CV and then they didn't get back to you, or they said to you, we don't have any vacancies at the moment, it doesn't mean that they're not going to keep it on file. And also, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get a call in 3 or 4 months. And also, it doesn't mean that they don't have availability in similar departments. My job is marketing, but it's super creative, and also I could work in graphics. So there's like different departments where you could work, then specialise when there's availability. So don't have the attitude of like, oh, I'm struggling. Like, obviously your priority right now is to graduate, and that's super important. You need to smash it. But then as soon as you graduated, throw yourself in the deep end. Like, just make sure that it's you. You want to hand it to like your best friend and then be like, oh my god, this is so you. Oh my god, yeah, love this. This is literally you all over. Like, you want it to represent you. So I've had literally quite a few people being like, what to not do. So I think things to not do: don't use a black and white CV. Is pure and simple. Don't use Microsoft Word. Don't use a photo of yourself. I don't know about that one. I personally don't think a photo on a CV is necessary. It's fine if you have it, I wouldn't judge you, but I just don't think it's necessary. Like, if I wanted to see what you look like, I'd stalk your social media. It's my job. But yeah, I just don't think a photo is necessary. I think it's a waste of space. Obviously, if you've got like a headshot because you're an actor or whatever, fine, but just in social media, you don't need a photo on your CV. It's just not relevant. Other no-goes would be too much text. Already said this. Having loads and loads and loads of info on it is just a no from me. I feel like if you've got the most relevant experience, or just like sharp to the point, so that if I want to ask you about it in an interview, I know I don't need to then be like, oh, I've already read this, like I already know this, I already know it so well. Like, you want to go in and surprise them, but also you want to go in and talk about yourself and sell yourself. And if you do that in your CV, what you can do in your interview. Another no-go for me would be your address. I wouldn't put your address on your CV, because I think if you're applying for a job in Manchester and you live in London, you're obviously willing to move, because you wouldn't have applied for it if you weren't. But I just wouldn't advise it ever. I just don't think it's necessary. And also, what am I going to do? Put it into Google Maps and judge your house? Like, it's not like that. You don't need your address. I just don't think it's relevant. I'm trying to think. There's definitely more. Someone asked me what my cover letter looks like. I don't actually do cover letters unless they ask for them, because I change my CV every time I apply for a job. I don't make a CV and then just give it to someone. I will apply for a job with a CV for that brand. So I've applied for jobs at other fashion companies before, and I've literally used the same CV, but I've changed the background colour, I've changed the text, I've changed the logo to the logo of the company, and then I've made it on brand. So I've literally had at the top of my CV why this brand, and then obviously I alter that for every place I applied for. So I would constantly be changing it. And I think I don't need a cover letter when the CV is for that company, because it's literally for them. And that why them box is my cover letter. So I've never done one, but I think if you do one, just make it creative, make it on Photoshop, make it match your CV, make it as pretty as possible, and don't make it too long. So someone put, what would be your biggest advice to someone? Honestly, put your most relevant experience / most recent job at the top of your CV. The amount of CVs I've looked at recently that have, I got 7 GCSEs, A star to A, 6 GCSEs, B, and then they've got sick work experience. And I'm like, why do I care about what you got in your GCSEs when you were 16? If you've been working in a relevant industry for like 2 years, like nobody cares what uni you went to, what degree you got, or your GCSEs once you've got work in a business. So for me, I would always just say, always put your most relevant and most recent work at the top. So for me, if I'd been made redundant during, touch wood, but if I got made redundant and I had to go work at Tesco, obviously I would have been in the style for 2 years, I would have been at ISOR for a month, and then if I got made redundant tomorrow, I would go and work in Tesco. When I was applying for jobs, do you really think I'm going to have, I did journalism 3 years ago and like currently work at Tesco at the top of my CV? Probably not. I would definitely have my most recent experience that's relevant and also more in depth. So always put your most relevant experience at the top. I would rather know that you did a 6-month internship at a fashion company than you graduating with a first or than you getting 12 GCSEs. Like, you need to go in with the heavy, with the hard stuff. As soon as I click on a CV, all I see is their name, maybe a photo, and then I see literally the top box. So that top box needs to be the most relevant, because if it's not, I'm going to close it. Someone said, where is the best place to apply or find jobs? It's hard because there's places like Fashion Worky that are like dedicated to certain jobs like what I do, but I would just always recommend LinkedIn, and also don't apply for a job, just send it even if they're not hiring. So I have had 2 jobs in fashion and I didn't apply for a job in either of them. My first job, I just sent them CVs and they were like, oh yeah, we're hiring in social, so great. And my second job, I actually followed the old senior executive from I Saw It First and saw that she was leaving. So I messaged the manager and just said, are you hiring on your team? So it was using that initiative of seeing that someone was leaving, so wondering if they'd already hired someone or if there was a gap. So it was definitely making sure that I could get my foot in the door as soon as possible. So the fact that they hadn't replaced her was great, because it then gave me the opportunity to go in for an interview and I got the job. So both of the jobs that I've had, I haven't actually seen an advertised job role for. But obviously I have applied for jobs where it's been advertised on LinkedIn, it's been advertised on that company's LinkedIn specifically. And also just making sure you're following the right pages. So if you want to work in fashion, follow the businesses on LinkedIn, follow them on social media, because 9 times out of 10, they'll be posting Instagram stories with links to their LinkedIn or with links to whoever they're using to advertise the job role, where you can then swipe up and apply. So definitely be following the right people. But also follow people like myself, not begging for followers, but if you follow me, then I'm obviously going to be like, we're hiring on the social team. So make sure that you're following the right people from the right companies, because if you want to work on the social team that bad, follow the social team at I Saw It First, follow the social team at Pretty Little Thing, and then when the job comes available, they're going to be the first people that are posting about it. So no brainer, and it helps me out too. So the second to last question is it worth having a creative CV for other positions such as buying and merchandising? I don't know, because I don't work in it, but I would imagine that it would make you stand out, so why wouldn't you? I think if you've got the skill set, you've got the creativity, and that's what you want to be doing, then just do it. I don't really know with buying and merch, but that's the sort of thing that you actually have to go to uni to study to like get into it, and then I don't know. Obviously, I think if you've got a creative CV and you're applying for it, you just got to think, like, if you're going for that job and someone that you went to uni with that has the exact same experience as you is going for that job, and you've got a black and white Word document with it's 4 pages long and she's got a 2-page creative CV, and you've got exactly the same degree, exactly the same grade, who are they going to get in for an interview? They're going to go for her. So I don't know. I think it's obviously not super relevant because you won't be using it on your day-to-day, I guess, but I think just do it. If you've got the creativity and the skill set, then what you got to lose? And then the last question I've got is, are creative CVs still as effective because everyone is doing them? That is a really good question. So when I did my CV, it was like unheard of. Like, I got the inspo from a friend of mine who is a photographer at PLT. I asked her how she got her job, and I just said, like, oh my God, you look like you're living your best life. Like, how did you get that job? And she obviously had relevant experience, but she did a portfolio, but she was a photographer. So I was sat there and I was like, if I did a portfolio, what the fuck would I put on it? Because I was just like, oh, I can't do that. And then I was like, no, yes, I can. And obviously I did a portfolio 4 pages long, so I definitely had stuff that I could put on it. So that's how I got I hadn't really seen a creative CV prior to what I did, because not saying that I made it a thing at all, but I just think that it wasn't really a thing when I was applying for jobs 2 years ago. So it's hard. But yeah, with everyone doing them, I do know what you mean. It's like when we hire for jobs now, it's like, oh, this looks like the website, oh, this looks like the Instagram, and it's like, yeah, these are great, but obviously, like, if you've got 10 black and white CVs and 1 creative one, you're like, oh my god, amazing, this is sick. Whereas obviously if you've got 10 CVs and 10 of them have done on Photoshop and they're all as good as each other, it's like, what do you do now? So I do understand the question. I think it depends on the person. I still think they're super effective. Like, when I went through people's CVs to look at a position at my job now, I was definitely looking for creativeness, like what I've done before. And some of the applications we had were insane. It's obviously just super, super competitive and only one person could get the job. So it's just luck of the draw, really. But obviously having relevant experience helps a lot, but having super, super creative CV definitely will help you stand out. But I think that they are becoming more of a normal thing. So, like, especially when people watch videos like this, they're going to be watching it and thinking, shit, I need to do that. And it's like, if everyone thinks that, then how are you actually going to stand out? And it shouldn't get to the point where you're having to make a cake and send it in, or make your CV edible, or light up on a huge screen, or whatever. Like, you should be able to be like, this is me, this is what I can do, hire me. And I worry that with the direction that it's going in, where people are making things super, super, super creative and it's costing them like quite a lot of money, it's like, are you then giving the people that can't afford it like less of a chance? Like, it costs a lot to print CVs, let alone make like expensive ones. So it is quite difficult to answer that question, but my answer would be to just do it anyway, because even if it is getting the stereotype, then you'll be fitting in even in a creative way, if that makes sense. But yeah, I would just always recommend doing a creative CV, just because I think it will help you out so much. So those are all of the questions that I had. The only other thing that I can really say is that I think it is super, super important to just apply for jobs that aren't even being advertised, because I think that when you want something that badly, you'll get it. And I think that that is a huge thing for me. Everything happens for a reason. I definitely would just say, like, keep applying with creative CVs, but don't wait for a job opportunity to come up. Like, you need to go and seek it. So let's just wrap it up really quickly. Create a CV that is short, snappy, grabs attention, not black and white, not using Microsoft Word. Make it visual, and also just make it stand out in general, and send it to companies when they're not even hiring, because they'll either keep it on file or someone will hand their notice in and then boom, they get an amazing CV and they're like, oh, great timing. I think that's basically everything I had to say. If there's any more questions, please do just leave them in the box below. I will answer them just on text. But yeah, I don't really think there's anything else for me to cover, really. I'm absolutely starving. It's like 6:30 at night and I am hungry. But yeah, so I hope that this answered everyone's questions. And yeah, please do make sure that you go and watch my other video that is on breaking the industry, because that will probably answer any questions that I haven't really touched base on today. And if you haven't already, please do like, subscribe, comment, whatever, share, tweet it, link me, tag me, whatever. I think the subscribe button will be here and the next video that will be coming up will come up here. But yeah, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye!